going.
Concerns over employment and inflation are front and center. Those concerns were already heating at the end of last year, but the war turned up the gas.
So, headline this week: why home buyers and sellers are exiting the market. So interesting headline. And we're going to unpack that today. So welcome back to our Finance Fridays. I think Cheryl has this really cool Rubik's Cube looking thing that she just showed us before we were back about like, be kind. But tell the truth. Wasn't there something like that on there? Or was that one of them?
If you can't be kind, please be quiet.
There it is. There it is. So quiet, or if you can't be accurate, please be quiet. Maybe we should put that on there. So there's a lot here. We talked a little bit about it before we jumped on. There's a lot here. Some of it true, some of it's not. Some of it's like very, very wide net of information being pulled in by not necessarily validated sources. So with that, I kick to Connor to tell us all about the charts we want to share.
Yes, indeed.
You want to see confidence and sentiment first?
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at that. So this is someone I actually came across. Wow, that looks big in the window there. So this is kind of an interesting chart. So everyone knows that uncertainty, volatility is kind of the name of the game now with us being Iran with rates all over the place. We hit, below 6% in rates and then they jump back up. But what this shows is consumer confidence and versus consumer sentiment, basically how consumers are feeling in this kind of environment. But you can see that the blue line and the red line, which measure different things, consumer confidence versus consumer sentiment, and they're usually kind of on top of each other. They vary a little bit, but look at the gap now between the two. So basically, consumer confidence, the blue line is talking about the economy. What do consumers think about the economy? What do they think about jobs? Kind of about the nation as a whole. How are companies doing? Profitability, and is much higher than consumer sentiment, but it's still below 100, which means kind of a negative sentiment. So people think that the economy is slowing, jobs are declining, the economy is weakening a little bit. But what's interesting is you look at consumer sentiment, and that kind of ties in with what we're going to talk about today. Why are buyers backing away from the housing market? Because consumer sentiment has to do with their personal feelings about their personal finance, their household finances, their situation. How much does it cost to go to the grocery store? Are they willing to make purchases such as home buys, auto buys, whatever it is? They're not feeling that good about it for whatever reason, mainly because of the war. There's uncertainty, but high prices we've seen over the last few years. They're just not feeling great about that. So that's one of the reasons why buyers may be stepping back from the market.
All right. And then we were going to flop over to this other chart from Fred.
Yeah. So basically what this shows is that there's so much uncertainty in the market right now that people are saying, well, I kind of want to hold off buying. I want to wait for better affordability, which kind of goes to that consumer sentiment number. People aren't too secure about their personal finances or jobs or the economy. And so the blue line there is basically mortgage rates all the way back to 1970. And you can see they bounce, up and down every year. They went way up in the, late 80s, all the way down for, the next number of years. And then we had a recent huge spike. But what's interesting is, for the people that say, well, I think I want to wait for better affordability, better prices, lower rates, whatever the case is, the red line basically shows home prices on a nationwide basis. And you can see that it varies a little bit, but on the whole, it's a straight shot up, basically. So even though rates kind of vary all over the place, home prices almost go up every year with very little volatility, except in the gray bars where we hit a recession. They may decline a little bit, but then they just go right back up. The only real major decline that we had was in 2008, where we had the housing crisis, and we had a pretty significant decline then. But then they just shot straight up after that. So what I would say is, you really can't wait for better conditions, rates or prices, because home prices tend to go up no matter what rates do over the long term.
Mm-hmm. So Shay, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, in our previous episodes, we've shown the charts that show that every year since like 1942, they've always appreciated in value based on like a 10-year average, whether it was 1%, 17%, 23%, but it's always appreciated. And even though right now what we're seeing is there is pent up demand as home buyers. So as they're moving into the market, those prices are going to start increasing even more because the competition is going to come back. Yeah. And when there's competition, that drives up prices, which takes the power out of the home buyer's hands. They can no longer negotiate lower prices. They can't negotiate concessions. We're going to see what we probably saw back in COVID, not as aggressive as 80,000 we're asking. People are going to start not asking as much from the seller, and if they hold off, it's gonna be ugly. And we provide those cost of waiting worksheets that show you how much it's going to cost you, in closing costs, in down payment, monthly mortgage payment, that how much it's going to increase by waiting just 1 year. It's going to be a huge difference.
One of the things that grabbed me about the headline is the sellers are exiting the market. And so when I think about that, why are they exiting? Is it the 3% rate they don't want to trade out? Is it the fear of affordability and they're locked into a great rate, good equity position, and they're going to sit still? Or is it that they are still so inflated on what they think their home is worth, they're not willing to negotiate? What are you guys' thoughts on that?
The answer is yes.
All of them. Yes, and yes, right? So we're not really in a downturn. We're kind of in a freeze where inventory is not so low. It's lower, right? But there's also lower demand at the same time. So it's kind of like, it's almost like everybody's sitting on the sidelines going, who's going to flinch first?
I think they like their rate, honestly.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it, without a doubt.
No, I think they also got a little spoiled during COVID where values went up so high. They still think we're in that kind of a market. So they're not following the trends of, so many people were like, oh, I'm waiting for it to drop into the 4s. And we're like, but we went from 8 down to 6 5s. Like, you missed the drop already. It's already there. And in that space, it's still not good enough for them. But we're not going to see those 3s again. Not for a very long time, at least in my opinion. But
yeah, what's kind of interesting is, as part of the video, we didn't really show it on this podcast, but they were talking about the reasons why people are not wanting to buy right now, and prices was one of the lowest reasons out there, which was kind of interesting. Which it's not surprising to me, but I think a lot of people assume that affordability is the major issue why people are not buying right now, but it's really not. I mean, if you look at what has happened with rates. Since 2023 in October, when rates were over 8%, we are way below that level, way below that level. And we dipped down under 6% for a little while. So over 2% lower, but really demand hasn't picked up that much. And then you've had massive reductions off list prices, which is making affordability much better. So affordability's improved without a doubt, but demand really hasn't picked up. So I think fear, uncertainty, that consumer sentiment number that I showed, is the reason why people are not buying. They just don't know what to do. It's their uncertainty out there. So affordability is not as big of an issue as people think it is.
No, I think that's a great point.
I think people also are confusing rates with the Fed. They're like, I'm waiting for the Fed to drop rates. And we're like, how many times do we have to tell you it doesn't control the mortgage rates? And first mortgage rates have been dropping, and the Fed is behind. They usually follow suit with what we do, and they're just not following suit. And we've talked about that on our podcast multiple times because Connor has shared, the different charts of the job reports and how it's gotten edited, and this didn't change because they don't believe the market really is where it is. So, I mean, it's just the lack of research.
Yeah,
everyone's
there's a lot of noise out there, without a doubt.
Yeah, because they're listening to the headlines. And
you have a lot of buyers going, the market's going to crash. The market's going to crash. Because like I said before, I think we're in this freeze state, right?
Do you think we're in a freeze?
I do. I think you've got both sides sitting on the fence. The seller's going, I might be able to get more money if I take my house off the market. I'm not really sure where this war is going. I'm not really sure if I'm comfortable with my job. I've got this great 399 rate. I don't have to sell. I was just considering selling. And I think, I mean, I've gotten several calls in the past couple of months where where past clients are saying, we decided we're just going to take out an equity line and do what we want to do to this house, rather than buy a new house, because we really like the rate that we have, and we don't want to be house poor. So I think you've got a lot of that going on.
And see, I have conversations where a lot of customers, at least on my neck of the woods over here on the East Coast, are going through financial hardship. So they're missing mortgage payments. They feel like they have to sell to get out of the payment that they're in, because a lot of people I don't know if it's just over here, maybe it's on your side too, but they're living above their means. The credit.
Well, it kind of goes to the consumer sentiment number. I mean, that people are concerned about their personal finances. Yeah, I mean, it's real. It's not like it's just in specific parts of the country. It's kind of all over, and it goes back to the fact that inflation has been going up for ever since post-COVID, and a lot of people kind of get confused on the annual inflation number, which hit over 8%. Back in, I think it's 22 was a peak maybe. And it's gone down to maybe 2.5% annually right now. But that doesn't mean prices have dropped. That just means the rate of increase has slowed. So we've had year after year after year after year of straight price increases on everything. And that's really beginning to impact people. And that's why that consumer sentiment number is so negative right now, because people are just being pinched and there's no relief at all.
And then you've got those families who resist that, and they start putting everything on credit cards. That's why you're seeing credit card debt soar, because they're accustomed to this type of lifestyle and they don't want to give it up.
Yeah.
And I was just going to say that because Isabel and myself, we're not going to call y'all old, but we're going to say the little younger generation.
I know you're not.
I feel attacked. I don't know about you. Do you feel attacked?
Millennials.
I like to say I'm at level 58 right now instead of 80.
The Gen X is, Isabel, in your opinion, right? We work with a lot of first-time home buyers in a younger age group. Do you feel that they're also living above their means and don't have maybe the discipline to? No, I don't want to say discipline. Maybe they're just not. What's the word I can say?
They probably don't have a choice.
Is it discipline to be able to plan and to strategize? Because it's not something that they're really taught in school to financially plan.
Right. I mean, I could speak for myself too, being in that bucket. Being a first-time home buyer, if you don't have the education, what it takes to get into a new home and think of all the, I guess you would say, the plan, saving the money. You might not get in. Scratch that. Sorry. Pause. I'm trying to get ahead of myself. But yeah, I do believe like without the education going into a home for the first time, it could be like a huge payment shock. People are in our area right now in a regular size home, it's like $2,500 to live. So they're thinking, well, why can't I just get into my own home? It's going to be as easy as renting, when it's not. It actually there's a lot more responsibility behind it. So sometimes they get themselves in positions where it might be too much for them.
Yeah.
You know what I see, and this is going to really date me, but I'm younger than Connor.
Oh, man.
But only by 2 years.
Yeah.
But what I see, and it is that Americans in general are really spoiled. And over my lifetime, I have seen, and I'm going to use something that I talk about with Isabel often, baby showers and events. When we were kids, and we were when my baby shower consisted of a roll of toilet paper where we wrapped up we wrapped me up and said, how many squares is it? A cake that was made at home and so on. And today, like, there's a very flamboyant lifestyle that everybody's trying to live up to. And I feel like that's why we're not slowing in the spending as much, because everybody's trying to keep up with the other end. That whole thing, you're on social media, look at my pictures. Yeah. What? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it happens every time. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Connor.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, that's one of the reasons why we have such variability in the economy. We have these huge ups and downs because, once you get accustomed to a certain lifestyle, you're not going to change it until you absolutely have to. But
It has
that's
it has to cause pain.
yeah, it's going to
I
cause
don't.
pain, and that's kind of where we're at now. And people, that's why everything that we've been talking about now sounds pretty negative about housing, about consumers, about the economy. But the way I look at it is always the contrarian view, the opposite. So what's bad is ultimately good for us, because when you have a slowdown in the economy, you have slowdown in consumer spending, and the longer this persists with this uncertainty about the war, the more people are going to cut back on their spending. What is that going to cause? It's going to cause a slowdown in inflation, the economy, and lower rates. So I think once we get past this, we're going to have a huge period of dramatically lower rates. Everyone's going to pile into the market now. And that's why I've been pounding the table on the fact that now is a buyer's market. Now is the time to get into the market. And we have solutions such as temporary rate buydowns to get you that rate you want before all this competition comes into the market.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So pain equals change, right? So
Yeah.
we see
Yeah.
the more pressure we have on the economy and people do start to slow, you see that credit card debt
Yeah.
rising, you see all those things happening, but it's causing people to stop and push back and go, I can't afford this anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe I won't go get that extra latte at Starbucks, you know? And I think that's where what we're looking for and what we've been waiting for as Americans to slow down.
Yeah.
With their spending.
Well, and this has been happening for the last, couple of years where people said a recession's coming, but it never did. And so that's kind of what we wanted. We don't want a deep recession because it hurts people's jobs, prospects, and incomes. They can't buy a house. But we wanted to, a dramatic slowdown in the economy so we can have those lower rates, and we never got it. But this war, as bad as it is, and inflation it's causing with oil and gas and everything else, this is ultimately going to cause the lower rates that we've been waiting on.
So let me ask you, Connor, why do you think, as we saw it getting serious over the past couple of years, why do you think people didn't stop spending? Why do you think those numbers were not what we were anticipating?
Because we're Americans.
That's exactly what
we love to spend. And it's, when I used to manage money, it was the same thing. We always underestimated the consumer. We always thought they can't keep spending at this level, given the fact that we're in a recession, but they did. And that's why they max out credit cards. They take out home equity lines of credit. They do everything they can to maintain their current lifestyle until they absolutely cannot do it. That's why, you have people making payment after payment after payment, then they just default. They're just done. They just stop making payments on it.
And
so
I think that's what we're seeing in the younger generation is they're living in the now.
Yeah.
No one's preparing for the future. Whereas, my parents and the older generation, they prepared for retirement. They're planning, they're saving. Do you know how many customers I speak to that don't have a 401k? They're not putting into any type of a retirement fund. It's scary. And when we tell them speak with a financial advisor, get set up on some type of investment strategy, or even just planning your personal budget to know, can I give up that latte? Maybe I don't need to go to brunch every Sunday. Or did I need to buy that Louis Vuitton because that was my down payment? Like, what's more important? And that's where I think the discipline comes in. I don't know, Isabel, if you agree, but it definitely is I feel like the younger generation's living in the now. They're looking at, Bad Girls Club and Love and Hip Hop and, Housewives.
They want the bag and the house.
They want to seem like they live this every day when they don't. And it's nice to go have those experiences. Don't get me wrong, because I want to go have fun and do those experiences. But I've got plans. I got big plans for my future. And sometimes it's giving up brunch. I'll make brunch at home.
Yeah.
I'll put on my little tea hat if I need to.
Well, I mean, a lot of people haven't had a choice though, because there are certain fixed expenses that you can't get rid of. You get your car payment, you get your house payment, and insurance goes up, taxes go up. You just don't have a choice. I mean, if you have a TV, you have internet service, you can't, utility bills, you can't get rid of that stuff. But
some of that stuff you can't get away from.
You can't get away from it. Yeah.
But you do look at the person, like how many Mercedes do you see on the road today? And if you go back 15 years, did you see that many?
Yeah.
Listen, I have a customer who makes, like, let's say $2,500 a month, right? Why is her car payment over $1,000?
Yeah.
Why do you have that big expensive car?
No, and then we can get on a soapbox about this, but I think it just like we have, because we're passionate about it. But that Louis Vuitton or that Mercedes isn't going to pay for your retirement. It isn't going to get your family into a home. It's not going to give you security.
Mhm.
And what you're looking for is security. So we have to really think as Americans, what's important? What
Well,
do
it
we
depreciates
prioritize?
in
You know
value.
what will give you security is buying a home and the potential equity growth you have in it.
Ding,
Fact.
ding, ding.
Because
Huge.
everything else
Huge.
depreciates in value once you take it out of that store or off that lot.
Yep.
And you can't live in your Louis.
Nope.
Well,
I mean,
some of those are
she's
pretty
like,
Well,
big.
you
I don't know.
could,
so you could. The other thing that jumps off before we jump, there was also a piece of that video that talked about how people were very nervous about their jobs because of AI, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Drop mic. There's a lot of people very concerned about what does their profession look like in 4 or 5 years with the introduction of AI and how, and even now we're starting to see some companies go more towards the AI side. Do you think that that is part of this?
That's not conversations that I've had with customers. They're not telling me they're worried about their job. There's customers that I get that are like ready to get pre-approved, but then it's, oh, I just lost my job. And it's like, oh, you know, but so that wasn't even something they were preparing for. So that I don't think and this is again with the younger generation, I don't think this is something they're thinking about. I don't think they're thinking about long-term.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's
in
kind
the
of
now.
focused in the tech industry. You know, you're seeing pretty decent layoffs in tech right now for obvious reasons. But yeah, it's kind of hard to say. And maybe I'm a little bit naive about it, but I almost see it the same as the internet boom, where everyone said, oh my God, everyone's going to lose their jobs. You get the internet. There's so many jobs that are going to disappear because of it. So you basically have a big loss in certain jobs, but then you have new jobs created because of AI. Yeah. So I don't think it's going to be as bad as a lot of people think it is, just because it's going to eliminate certain types of jobs.
Well, now I'm going to really date myself with a good joke because party like it's 1999, Connor. Do you remember that? Like everybody thought the whole world was going to stop on its ear.
Yeah. What was it
from
called?
1999 to 2000.
The code that that was.
I was 10, by the way.
Yeah.
You were
I was
what?
going to say, Isabel, were we even born then?
I was 10.
Watch yourself.
I'm just kidding. I was an 84.
I think it goes with where a little extra wisdom meets energy.
There
This is what I like to look at it like, energy and go get 'em attitudes. But there's so much to think about when you're thinking about buying a home. Like, where do you see your family in 5 years? What does your budget look like? Do you have that nest egg in case the AC breaks? How are you handling those things? So definitely something to think about. But when you look at the you look at the appreciation year over year, and you see how much money you're throwing away when you're paying rent.
It's the greatest investment ever.
It's the greatest investment ever. And it's still tried and true. And if you can give up the Louis or the Starbucks to buy the house, you should.
Yeah.
And right now is the perfect time.
Yep. You got to have a plan.
Some of those worksheets that, you know, Connor and I have done for our customers, they show, like, as a veteran, if you're doing 0% down, it showed on a couple of them 119% of return on investment within that first year. Just because there's no down payment. Now imagine if there's a low down payment, you're still looking at a significant return on investment. So I think they're looking at price, not looking at what they've put into it.
Yeah,
that's the difference.
Return.
Cliche comment here,
Yep.
but you're paying somebody's mortgage, just not yours.
Yeah.
Right. And so you could be gaining that equity, you could be getting that appreciation. And maybe it takes not buying Starbucks for a year. Ever do that calculation where you do $5 a day at Starbucks? It's like over, what is it? I think $4,000 or $5,000 a year.
Yeah. Well, do you get the cold
That's
phone?
a down payment. Huh?
I said, well, do you get the cold phone?
I do. But listen, I'm a Starbucks junkie. I will not lie, but I had to stop myself. I go once a week.
I don't go anymore until it's pumpkin spice season. Sorry. It's just not happening.
Well, and then you have the Dunkin' girl on the call. You can't go through a Starbucks with her. All right. Well, that was a great article. And thanks for everybody for tuning in. And we'll see you next week. Yep. See you next week on Finance Fridays.
Okay. Sounds good. See you guys.
Bye.